What up, y'all? This is your Don Israel coming to you live from Lit, asking y'all to subscribe to the channel. So make sure y'all subscribed, make sure y'all liking the videos, make sure y'all commenting, and make sure you turn on your notifications that let you know when new videos are dropping. We're dropping them daily, and you want to be on it because we on it, all right? So keep it lit, keep it locked, subscribe, we out. Mark Duce is a dream. What's going on, y'all? It's your boy, your Don Israel, a.k.a. Liddy Fontaine. Pretty Liddy's what they call me. And we back again with another episode of Lit, the premier platform for all things literary swag and everything in between. Today's guest is the big homie. She's like a big cousin who's always picking on me when she shows up. We got Angela Flournoy in the building. Thank you for coming.
I'm so happy to be here.
So we need you to stand up. You always come swagged up.
I forgot my grill. I just realized right now. I'm so mad at myself.
Yes. So we need you to stand up, take us through the fit. How we starting top to the bottom? Bottom
okay.
to top.
Am I ashy? Okay, no.
Okay.
So these are Vince Camuto shoes.
Okay.
I don't know. I have big feet, so I have to go where the sizes take me.
Okay.
And I like them because they're kind of like Vans. And I'm from Southern California, so I like Vans.
Okay. But
they got tassels, just a little bit dressier. I got this skirt in Australia.
Okay.
At thrift store.
That's a bad skirt.
And so in Australia, they wear various sort of like plaid uniforms depending on the private school they go to.
Yeah.
And people like years later will recognize the plaid from whatever school. And someone on the street did tell me that like, I bought this in Melbourne, but that the school was in Sydney, but I don't know if that's true or not.
Okay.
I remember that plaid from somewhere.
And then the shirt.
This is just a unique little white shirt.
Yeah, keep it. And then with the earrings.
Yeah.
The accessories. What do you...
I don't remember when I got these earrings from. I have no idea.
All right. Well, thank you for coming, Angela. Is she in frame? Let me make sure she's in frame because you boxed out. So, when I first met you, it was 2 years ago. And I didn't even meet you. I met you through your book. I had a copy of The Turner House. Mm-hmm. And then you were named, this was before the Brooklyn Book Festival 2015. And then I had posted the book after you got longlisted or shortlisted. It was longlisted. And then we met at the Brooklyn Book Festival. I did your literary swag in the gym.
Right.
At the ping pong tournament. Mm-hmm. And then ever since then, you've been trolling me.
I've been supporting you, Don. I don't know what you're saying. Troll? Me?
Nah, you troll. But this book you're writing, your whole way of being in the world, is definitely one I admire a lot. And a lot of your writing, and I think your presence is about family. Like, one of the things that I felt that was dope was like you came to the National Book Awards 2015 with your moms. Mm-hmm. And so let's talk about family. And let's open that up. Sure. What your family looks like.
Yeah, so I come from a big family. My dad is one of 13. And my mom is one of 4, but I have like a lot of adoptive or like play cousin family also.
Yeah. So
like the high school I went to, for instance, I think at our peak, there were 6 of us there at one time, like related to each other. So I don't really have like some people like to keep their friends very like separate, like, oh, this is the thing I'm doing for my family, this is the thing I'm doing with my friends. But a lot of my peers when I was growing up were like related to me. And so in some ways I think that's why when I was in high school I didn't really care about fitting in a lot. I think I cared more in middle school than I did in high school, but in high school it was like, I don't really need to make friends. These people have to talk to me. They have to give me a ride home. It's whatever. Yes. And so...
that also explains you're very laid back. It's like...
Yeah. I think I've been sort of spoiled that way because I went to USC for undergrad. In my freshman year, I lived on Somerville, which is like the African-American themed floor. But it's like the Black people floor. And because of that, and there was like 32 of us, which is not a lot, it seems, but like in a predominantly white institution.
That's everybody.
Right. It was like we had our own mini HBCU, like just
I'm rocking HBCU. Shout out to Shaw University.
Shout out to Shaw, exactly. Yeah. And so a lot of those same people, they just so happened to move to New York. A lot of people from my freshman year. Yeah. You met all of them, like Zoe and Valerie and Jasmine and Sophia. And so all those people, I've had the same friends since my freshman year, so since I was like 18. And so even here in New York, I feel like maybe I'm a little bit more like laid back than other people, even in literary spaces, because I usually bring like my family.
Bring your team.
So I
Really
bring
teamed up.
my old friends. Yeah.
One of the first people, not even first, but I think one of the most contemporary writers with an entourage. So
it's not an entourage.
Nah, you do. You become deep. So we got to do this Marduce. I think you've seen enough episodes.
Yes.
So you know what to do.
Oh, no.
Pop the top.
Okay. Ooh.
Cool. So, cheers.
Cheers. This actually tastes like nutritious.
It is. It's a healthy juice.
I don't taste juicer. We have to create.
You have to drink. All right.
Wait.
Okay. Thanks to the generosity of Jason Reynolds, I could be a bit more generous with the pour. Because Nicole Sealy got on me. She was like, boy, you better pour more in there. I'm like, you don't know how much these bottles cost. We ain't got no funding. Trying to get Duce to sponsor us.
Right.
Send some bottles through. Then you just swirl it around.
All right. Nice.
Boom. Cheers again.
Oh, cheers. Whew. That's all right. That's good. That's not too crazy for like 1 p.m. on a Thursday.
I think it is a smooth drink. It's a smooth. You ain't gotta drink it all at once.
And the nice thing about this is like you ain't even gotta walk around with this in like a paper bag.
No, you don't.
This is apple juice.
You don't. Hopefully, it don't get too popular the way cops know this is. Hey, come here.
Right.
So I remember when I interviewed you back in January, and we had the conversation about the first story you ever wrote, and it was about a 3-legged elephant that had been discriminated against.
Yes.
Tell the people why you wrote that story.
I wrote that story. I don't actually remember if it was a prompt or why I wrote the story, but I've always been into elephants, right? I think you saw I have some in my house. I'm a Delta. I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta. I did not pledge because of the elephants, but maybe on a subconscious
They have elephants out there?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I've always just associated like the whole throwing up the diamond thing.
The dynasty sign.
Yeah. She a Delta, so she dynasty sign.
Elephants are like their unofficial sort of like mascot. And
something new.
And so I probably was just into elephants, and so I was asked to write a story. And I don't know, that's something to think about. Recently, for like this other project I've been working on, I looked at a lot of my old journals.
Yeah.
And which I started journaling in 93, so I was 8.
Damn.
One of my aunties.
You got me about 5 years. Okay.
Huh?
So you got me about 5 years.
One of my aunties who lives in Detroit had like given me a journal. I don't know. She probably just got it at like what's Pick and Save. I guess it's called Big Lots now for like Christmas. But for me, I was like, I'm gonna do this, and so I did. But when I try to read those, it's like those are really boring until like junior high, and that's when like things get stressful. The hormones start making things stressful. But it probably did have something to do with like feeling like an outsider in some way, channeling that into that elephant.
I saw you were always pretty much like a taller girl than everybody else. Was that a way in which you felt like you were like, even physically like?
Well, I was taller, and I went to school and predominantly with Mexicans, some Salvadorans, but mostly Mexicans and Filipinos.
This was in
California, in Southern California.
Yeah,
who are not necessarily known for their height.
Right.
So I also felt like I was like the brownest person around and the tallest person around.
Yeah.
It's not like I went to school where I had dealt with a lot of racism. I really didn't.
Yeah.
Besides like mild immaturity sort of things. But I did in 3rd grade, I had like a growth spurt. And so I was taller than all of my friends, which has just continued.
Yeah.
So that was probably part of it too.
And then you read. On top of that,
I did read. I mean, I always had like nerdy friends until I started playing basketball. Then I got some cool friends. But
I was gonna ask if you played basketball, but I felt like I was out of order. I'm like, you can't just ask the tall girl if she played basketball. But I'm pretty sure they made sure you played.
Right, I wasn't good. They were just like, "You're tall. Come over here."
And then, how long did that last?
I played for 2 years. My sophomore and junior year, I was on JV, and then I was on varsity.
This is high school now.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I quit for senior year. Because I was student body president.
All right.
I didn't have time.
What did you do in your tenure?
In my tenure, I got us a new marquee, which it just got replaced last year, which made me feel real old. Because it was brand new, it was LED, but now they got like a computerized thing.
Oh, shit.
LED is out.
Yeah, that shit is old.
Right.
So for you, let me ask you, when you started writing, right? Before you started writing, who was the first person you had read that sort of made literature real to you?
So I started writing, as I said, very, very young.
Yeah.
I actually did bring something to read.
Oh, you did?
I know you think I didn't follow any of the
You told me you ain't following it.
But I'm going to read it, and I want you to guess where it's from.
If it ain't James Baldwin, I ain't gonna know who it is.
No, I've been writing since I was like 8 years old, so you gotta think younger than that.
Okay.
Once there were 4 children whose names were Peter, Susan, Edmund, and Lucy. This story is about something that happened to them when they were sent away from London during the war because of the air raids. They were sent to the house of an old professor who lived in the heart of the country, 10 miles from the nearest railway station and 2 miles from the nearest post office. He had no wife, and he lived in a very large house with a housekeeper called Mrs. Macready and 3 servants. Their names were Ivory, Margaret, and Betty, but they do not come into the story very much. He himself was a very old man with shaggy white hair, which grew over most of his face as well as on his head, and they liked him almost at once. But on the first evening, when he came out to meet them at the front door, he was so odd-looking that Lucy, who was the youngest, was a little afraid of him, and Edmund, who was the next youngest, wanted to laugh and had to keep on pretending he was blowing his nose to hide it.
Lemony Snickers, what's that?
It's The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Oh, I definitely. And yo, yeah, you told me you really liked fantasy novels at a point.
Yeah, when I was like really young. I mean, I just like series, which kids still do.
Yeah.
And
you
so
talked about reading Narnia.
Yeah, that's the first one from that like series, and so I just read them all really, really quickly. I wish I had like a cooler, like blacker answer.
Nah, it's not. I mean, that's the.
But that was like the first thing.
I remember the quickest book I ever read was Holes. Remember 7th grade. I got Holes and I devoured that in a night. I don't know what it was. I was trying to figure out what the hell. I thought they had like money stash.
Holes was a good movie. That's a good movie.
I thought I was talking about the book though.
I know. I didn't read the book.
Oh.
I was a little too old to be reading the book by that time.
You wasn't that old.
I was like,
I was 12.
in college.
You wasn't.
Yes, I was. How old are you?
I was. Oh, I was in 7th grade, so 13. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
What I look like freshman year? Like, let me put down this James Baldwin and read this whole.
You could read. You could read them in tandem.
It's true, but it wasn't like trendy like it is now. Like all the adults read YA, and YA is like smart, and everybody's reading it. But back then, adults were like, "What are you doing reading Holes?"
Yeah. What do you think What do you think was the shift? What's been the shift with why people are reading YA now? Because Jason came on here. And he went into a...
Well, he's an expert.
He went into a Kanye tirade on it.
I mean...
He went into his Kanye-esque rant on, like, y'all better start respecting...
I love when he does, like, the direct addresses to the people. Like, y'all. He's very good at that. I mean, I defer to him because I'm sure he knows more of the statistics than I do about, like...
No, but I mean, like, on a...
But I think part of it is because YA is doing more to resemble the actual population of the country, of its readership. And... adult publishing, literary publishing is certainly lagging behind that.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, look at the long list for YA, like for National Book Award.
It does look like what this country is.
And both just like as far as race and like sexual orientation, but also like differently abled people. Like YA is just out here exploring all these different ways of existing that. I'm not saying there's no adult people writing this, but it's certainly not being published at that same rate.
Yeah.
So that's probably one reason why adults might be like, oh, well, you know. And then also I think sometimes you don't, like if you think about like adult fantasy series, a lot of them, again, they're not looking like us in the adult fantasy series, but in like a YA fantasy series, you know.
Yeah.
More likely. So if you're into fantasy, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. So... Turner House, about a family of 13, resembling who you just said, like your father's, at least in composition of the size.
Right.
Takes place in Detroit. And you decided to focus on middle-aged siblings. What informed that decision?
I wanted to focus on people one generation removed from the Great Depression, the Great Migration. And so that's just the age they would have been, like in 2000, is in their 40s and 50s and some in their 60s.
Yeah.
Also, if you want to talk about a whole bunch of adults and then you want to have them be this big, like 13 siblings, everyone can't be 25.
Yeah, like that and you're right. Like
that's naturally going to create like a spread.
And it's also just like how many people are having 13 kids
anymore, right?
Like past the age.
You get a television show, right? Or you're all over the tabloids now if that happens.
Yeah.
So.
And so, with the whole idea of making the family move 1 year from the Great Migration, why was that important to you for even for the telling of the story?
Well, the story, I really wanted to have people who had like experienced the entire scope of change in the city of Detroit.
Right.
And a lot of the ways that the city changed were directly related to the way that the city accommodated, or mostly did not accommodate, its like African American population, which exploded because of the Great Migration. Right. So the two were like related.
Yeah. Your answers are so quick. I'm just like, oh snap! I think there's more. But then
it's okay.
You just drop it.
That's what happens when your book's been out for a minute. You're just like,
Like I've learned the answers. You started writing this book, if I'm not mistaken, at Iowa, right?
Yes.
Where it's like one of the most prestigious programs. You had who had been the person who had wrote your recommendation for it?
Oh, that's a good story. So one person was one of my former bosses and the only like real job I ever had. I used to do PR here in New York. Rebecca Fitz. Shout out to Rebecca Fitz. I don't even know if you're still in New York, but she wrote one of my letters of rec. And then David Lloyd, one of my professors at USC, and then Dana Johnson.
Who's that?
Dana Johnson, you don't know who Dana Johnson is? You should. So she's short story writer and novelist. Her first collection, Break Any Woman Down, came out I think in the mid to late 90s, and it won the Flannery O'Connor. And then she has a novel that came out a couple years ago called Elsewhere, California, which is really, 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 really good. Crazy thing about her, so I never took a class with her. My other professor, David Lloyd, just like put us in contact after I was already out of USC. She went to the same middle school and high school as me. Right. So she also grew up in West Covina, California. But she's like maybe 10 to 12 years older than me.
Okay.
So the book, Elsewhere, California, is like about a coming of age story about being like a Black girl in West Covina, which is a very specific place. But it's crazy because, like, as I said, when I grew up there, and kind of how it is still, is that it was an ethnoburb, like a majority minority population. Like, right. I don't know how many white people were in West Covina, but at my school, there was not a lot. But 10 years prior, it was sort of before all the white people had left. So it was the same space, but it's like a completely different experience because there's like, she's sort of dealing with like suburban whiteness in a way that I did not grow up having to deal with.
So you grew up like mainly around people of color. Yeah. So your first culture shock racially is when you go to USC? Yeah, but then I was like on the floor with all the Black people. So really my first culture shock was getting a normal job here in New York right after undergrad. So, and you were working publicity and literature or just publicity? No, fashion, retail. I would say retail, not fashion. So what was your job? Like, exactly. So there used to be a company, it doesn't exist anymore, called Steve & Barry's. They put out the Starberry Marbury shoe. It was like $20. No, it was actually like $14.98. $15. So I did PR for both the retail stores, like when I first started, before I got like a little promotion, I did it for like grand openings. Okay. So I would call local press people and try to get them to come to like the grand opening in, I don't know, Killeen, Texas or whatever. But then later I did like more kind of like fashion PR. Like I worked in the showroom and I would try to get placements. The Starberry. Yeah. Okay. They also had a line with Sarah Jessica Parker, and one with Venus Williams, and one with Amanda Bynes. And these all I mean, tanked for the lack of... Well, the whole company, like, after the, like Bear Stearns and stuff collapsed, the whole company, like, went under. Damn.
which, I mean, is not surprising because there was like a mortgage crisis and part of their business was like attached to these giant like spaces in retail malls all over the country.
Yeah.
So you got a lot of money like tied up in not the best real estate.
Yeah.
And so, but anyway, so that's what I did. And that was my first real exposure to like whiteness, I guess.
And what was that shift like for you? In terms of your mind, like, was it something you found yourself having to adjust to, or was it something that, like, it, you know, you kind of just treated it like another day?
Well, I mean, it was also not just like I want to be specific. Like, it also was my first experience with like East Coast class concerns, which are different from West Coast class concerns.
In what way?
We got good public schools in California.
Really?
Yes. You've never heard of the UC system?
No, I have not.
Like UCLA? Like UC Berkeley?
Like, so, like, is that, I've always just translated that. That's like the CUNY of, like,
yes,
the West Coast.
But those schools are all, like, top ranked. They're all, like...
That is true.
Nationally top ranked.
Yeah, nah.
And so, if you go to, like, a school that didn't cost a lot of money, it doesn't necessarily mean, like, you can go to Berkeley and, like, have a great life. But here, it was, like, everyone else who worked there went to, like, an Ivy League school or a small liberal arts college. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's a sort of different pedigree in a way, yeah. Right? That means they got into a fancy high school if they lived in like New York, right?
Yeah.
And they've sort of been on this track to excel
yeah.
in a way where a lot of people who get into, even Stanford, back then anyway, a lot of people who get into very good schools in California, they went to public school. They didn't necessarily, they haven't been sort of trained to be on this like track to be successful. And so there's just like there's different cultural kind of things that happen.
So definitely more bougie.
Yeah.
More bougie on
like one of my like best coworkers went to the school that Gossip Girl is based on, which I forgot the name of it.
High school.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
Is it like Horseman or something? Is that a place?
Girl, I don't know.
Anyway, so yeah.
They've continuously said New York has the most segregated school system in the country.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that is indicative by the fact that I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Right. So anyway, that was a sort of different thing. And just not understanding certain ways that like there's different cultural capital on this coast.
Let me ask you something. So when you leave in 8th grade, right, and you're going, because I'm trying to understand how this works. Because in New York, right, when you graduate from 8th grade, or in your 8th grade year, like every high schooler, at least that goes to public school, gets the book, and you get to pick your high school. Oh, you don't? No, you just go to it.
You go to the school. You go to the next school, unless you're going to go to private school.
Oh, nah, we had like...
You go... There was a few people who went to, like people I know who lived, who went to school in LAUSD, who went to kind of like Crossroads or Laces. There's a few of those you have to like, or King Drew. There's a few like the magnet schools you have to apply to. Mm-hmm. But plenty of people don't go to those schools. You just do well at the top of your class. Like you go to Fairfax, and like every school already has a way that it kind of segregates because people have AP classes or they have international baccalaureate. So every school still has its like stratifications.
Right.
So you just get yourself in those things, and you're fine at your giant public school. Right. You don't have to. So no, you don't apply. In fact, you're kind of obligated unless you pull some like trickery and get a different address to go to the school you're supposed to go to.
Yeah. That's definitely different in the city.
They had a waiver when I was in junior high school. I actually just reminded myself of this because I was reading my journal last week. They had a waiver that they sent home because there had been a bomb in a locker at the high school I went to. Mm-hmm. And so they had given us like for a few years of incoming freshmen, you could go to the other school in the district.
Okay.
Which was further and which was a little better. But my mom was like, no, you're going to go to this one and just be at the top of the class and get all the scholarships.
And that worked out.
Right. But all my friends went to the other one. I remember being upset about that.
So you was by yourself. You was dolo.
My sister was there.
So you wasn't.
And all my friends. I mean, all my family was there.
And so you have one sister, right?
I have two sisters.
Younger or older?
I have an older sister and a younger sister. Younger sister is very much younger. She's 17.
Okay. And the older sister got you for like, what, 2, 3?
3 years.
3 years? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting because I remember, you got to pick your high school from the 5 boroughs. And I remember the only thing I wanted to... the only thing most people are looking at is if like the girl to boy ratio, because all the dudes wanted to go to schools. Like you had a bunch of dudes going to Clara Barton High School. That was for nursing because like the ratio was like it was like an 80% girl school. Like,
Wow.
when I get there, it's gonna be mad bitches there, blah blah
They're
blah.
just gonna get friend zoned over and over and over and over again. I hope that's what happens.
Hey, that's not what happened to me. But I also wasn't like the guy who was doing that.
So, how did you get so did you go to school in this borough or you went?
Yeah,
to school
so I literally go to the school down the block.
Oh, okay.
So I went to Grand Street campus, and then there was also a thing in New York where you had to go to a school if you wanted to be safe that was dangerous in a weird way. Like your school had to be dangerous for you to be safe. So like if you went to a school that was known for like people getting beat up at, people sort of left you alone. What? So it was like, oh, you go to, so Eastern District, that's what Grand Street campus used to be called. It used to be called Eastern District High School, which was like known for like, it's like race fights because between like Dominicans and black people and stuff like that.
Y'all have race fights on this coast too?
Yeah.
I thought that was a California tradition.
I think that's throughout this country. That just happens where it's like more than one and you gotta share space.
Right.
But they broke the school up into 3 different schools: EBT, Legal, and Progress. And I went to EBT, which was on the top floor.
EBT.
Yeah. Enterprise Business and Technology. Okay. It was a joke with the like, you go to EBT card school, y'all make EBT cards. Like that was the whole thing. But when I applied, at the time, I applied because they had football, and I was like, I want to be a football player. Mm-hmm. And then the ratio, it was like 74% girls, 34% boys. Okay. Which also, to me, communicated safety. Because any school that had a lot of boys.
So how are they having race riots with like 2?
Well, that's just one floor though, right?
Okay.
Like so, on my floor, the school breakdown was 74.
It's so complicated. It's just like if you don't have an active parent or you're not just like a self-motivated student. What are you supposed to do?
You could definitely get lost in the city. I mean, this is like 8 million people.
This is crazy.
And you can go to any school that you want to go to. Like if you apply for a school in the Bronx and you live in Queens, if they accepted you, you could go there. So it was like this sort of ability to kind of like just venture out because we have public transportation, right? I think it changes if you needed a car.
Well, also they're not just one school district. Well, like there is an LA proper, like an LAUSD is a big school district which has a lot of students, but it also is, I don't know, it's changed now. There weren't all these charter schools when I was in high school, so maybe it's different now. Maybe kids are in 8th grade like looking at a big book of schools.
Yeah, in LA.
Yeah.
How many high schools was in, you remember, your thing, like your town or your like? Well,
I went to a small district, Roland Unified School District. There's only 2 high schools.
That's why y'all be having them like rivalries. Like that's a real thing.
Right. There are other high schools around. Weirdly, they just weren't like, because of the way the districts were broken up. Like there was Walnut High School that was closer than Roland to me. Mm-hmm. There was West Covina High School. There was Covina. There was South Hills. There was Ayala. There was all these schools, but they weren't in my district. Mm. And so, just how are you supposed to get to those schools? You would have had to like get some kind of exception. And LAUSD, there's a lot of high schools, but for my own sister who graduated from Fairfax High School, she lived down the street from Fairfax, so she went to Fairfax. If Fairfax was terrible, maybe her mom would have tried to figure out how to get her in one of the charter schools. Yeah, but it wasn't. I mean, Fairfax is a huge school. Yeah, but it's got again like those tracks within the school.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm really interested in how schools work now. Because I just assume that all school systems are structured the way New York school systems are. But that's just coming from New York.
The system is Byzantine. Like, as far as it's so complicated, and it's really, it can, like, so in 8th grade, basically, you're making decisions that are going to affect the rest of your life.
I ain't never think of it like that. Damn.
Well,
they set us the fuck up. Like, you're going to pick your school based on how many girls go there.
And it's like, why can't you just make all of the schools the same? Like, why can't they all be good? Exactly, because segregation, right? So because then they want to control, like, at these elite schools, they get the most resources. Mm-hmm. Like, how many of y'all, how many of us are in there? Yeah. Don't get me started on housing segregation, I think school segregation.
This is great because, well, not great in a good way, but I think this is a good transition into the book, because one thing you deal with a lot in the book is the housing discrimination of Detroit, mm-hmm. and how that really that becomes sort of a character in the book, is like the limitation of where black bodies can go in the city. Mm-hmm. That's considered to be for so long black.
Right.
And then that like paints like, the way the city even functions for a black character, or at least black characters in that book, of like where they can't go. And it seems to be more places than not.
Right. And
so they're confined.
And it's like something that affects just, well, one, it was like really disillusioning for a lot of these people who were like escaping the South and kind of the strictures of the South and came to the North. And Detroit is not alone in this. The same summer I sold my book, Ta-Nehisi Coates published The Case for Reparations in The Atlantic, which was all about housing segregation in Chicago, right?
Right.
But so the first thing is just like, psychologically, you escape like Jim Crow, you come to the North, and you're supposed to be able to like have full sort of like a full franchise. Like you're supposed to be able to have be participatory in like the American dream. So, but you're not, and you discover that really quickly. Like, oh, I actually like there's just different ways that they keep you out of power or even prosperity or even just like stability. And one of them is if you can't control where you live, you can't control what you're going to be charged for rent. Like, how are you ever supposed to have any sort of financial security? And that was huge during the beginning, the pre-war years, and really until like the Fair Housing Act. So it's like in the 60s, right?
Yeah.
So you have people who are making the same money, or maybe not the same, but good money comparatively. Maybe not the same as like some of their white co-workers, but they're making good money at these factories, and they're just flushing all that money away on rent. And these like really small pockets of the city where they're permitted to live. So of course the landlords are gouging them, right?
Right.
And yeah, that's something that kind of perpetuates, and it also keeps you dependent on a certain sort of work. Yeah. So,
and that's, when I'm reading writers, I'm always looking for like, how do I know that I'm reading this particular writer? Right? Like what are some of the hallmarks, the signatures of their style? And I think one thing that seems to make itself very pronounced in your work is that you are very concerned with injustice as a framework for how people recognize themselves in life. That's how I read it. Which is not to say that's how you write.
I think I'm concerned with honesty. I don't think I even think like, I gotta highlight this issue.
No. I wasn't saying
as much as like, if I'm thinking about honestly, like what does it take to support a family, which is like the big challenge, say, for the character Francis in like 1945, is what does it take to support a family? When can I feel confident to send for my wife and my child? Immediately, it's like, I have to have a real house. I can't be like living in this crappy boarding, house. And, it's impossible for me to get a real house, So that immediately becomes something. I think there's a way that, other writers, perhaps accurately, I would wager not accurately, they've decided that the political has nothing to do with their characters. The political has to do with all of us, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, it's not so much like I identify an issue when I create a way to explore the issue. This book started because I wanted to write about a house like the one my father grew up in, and then I decided later I'm going to make a huge family like the one I'm familiar with. It had nothing to do with like injustice in the beginning. That was all a result of research. So I don't know. I think that if you're writing about Black people living in this country and you're writing about it, honestly, and it reads like a Raymond Carver short story, you're lying to yourself.
Yeah.
You're just lying.
Right.
Or you've decided, I'm only talking about 2 hours where they never go outside, where they never have any external stimuli that's going to poke a hole in this,
And I think, maybe to frame that better, like not so much that you're like concerned with showing injustice, but like you said, there like that impossibility of talking about the personal without the political. And so in that, I guess what I see is the injustice, which is very different. But care to give some language for how do people, if somebody's reading you and they don't know they're reading you, what are some things that let people know they're reading an Angela Flournoy piece, whether it be fiction or, and I know you have different things, but what is some hallmarks of Angela's voice? I refer to you in third person for the podcast.
I'm not going to refer to myself in third person, but I would say I would say that there's going to be, I don't want to toot my own horn, but there's going to be good dialogue for sure. I feel like there's going to be good dialogue. I try my hardest to really, I mean, I've been nosy my whole life. So I've been listening to like all sorts of people talk for a long time. I went to a bilingual elementary school. So this is like I'm not fluent anymore in Spanish, but it's something that like I think influenced the way that I think about like dialogue, because it's like you hear people speaking one way at school all day. We used to have bilingual, and this was before it was cool. Like this was actually outlawed in the 90s. They are no longer bilingual schools in the way that I went to a bilingual school. Now it's like a charter school where they're teaching people to be bilingual. But my school was just by like virtue of serving their community bilingual, because we had a lot of first generation or recent immigrants in my school. So you would be in a classroom and there would be like two teachers. One would be speaking in English and one would be speaking in Spanish. You would go to assembly and the same principal. Our assemblies were so long. The principal would say everything in English and then say everything in Spanish. And now everybody's like, you know, people get on wait lists to get their kids in schools like this, but the anti-immigrant sort of environment of the day being that what it was, they made that illegal. Like you couldn't use public funds for that in California.
Shit.
But anyway, so because of that, I think like hearing one sort of like language all day and people communicating in one sort of way, and then going home and having people communicate in a different way made me very sort of like attuned to the way that people talk. And also because of that, just like growing up, I had like a whole bunch of different kinds of accents, also the way that I talk, depending on like what population of people were at my school.
Okay. And another thing I'm interested in from a writing standpoint, your ability to write male characters, which is very different than, I think that women writers are better writers, hands down.
Yes,
I'm not just saying that because you're here. But I think that women, because when I've seen male writers write women characters in novels, they're not as believable.
Well, men don't listen to women in life. Well, the thing is, I mean, if you're a woman, you just get a lot of opportunities to listen to men, whether you want to or not. What they think, you know, both when they're trying to impress you, like on a date, when, like, say you dated them and they decided to be vulnerable, like you get to hear about all their like hopes and fears and dreams. And in most cases, the average woman in a heterosexual relationship will be lucky if 30% of that is transmitted back the other way and like actually received by like the male.
30%? And that's high?
I mean, this is not my expertise, but I just feel like if you're living in 2017 in America, you have a lot of opportunities to figure out how men think because they're telling you all the time. But you don't have as many opportunities to figure out what women are thinking, especially not what like lower income Black women are thinking.
Right. And you do a lot of thinking on the page with Layla. And letting her like private life and the things that go unsaid often be seen and heard. And which for me, like that's been you talk about listening, that shit has been like a whole nother way of living for me recently now. Because
You started to listen?
Yeah, I'm starting to. And I know I'm starting to listen because I'm not talking as much.
It's good.
That's
it's useful.
part of it.
I think that it is, I didn't really find it difficult to write the men in my book. I found it difficult to write Layla.
Why?
Because she's very much not like me. She's like not confrontational. She's not trolling people, as you say that I'm trolling people.
Now, I don't know I can't speak for people. I know you troll me. I appreciate it.
I don't troll you.
I accept it.
She is like a person who is not necessarily honest with anybody, and so including herself. And so how do you write somebody like that who doesn't want to be forthcoming in a way that actually like helps the reader discover things about them? So I found like every single chapter with her to be extremely difficult. Because the Cha-Cha chapters, it was just like, I can imagine what he thinks.
Like, I know this guy.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you be willing to read something from the book? That's why we brought it. Give people a...
For how long?
You read it. You read what you know pacing. You know what feels like this feels good.
Okay. You been writing my book?
No, I'm writing my book. I bought this book. I'm telling you, writing your book.
Yeah, Lisa Lucas on here already?
Yeah, I know. You told me that she like marked it because you used to write in people's books.
I used to write in the books I was teaching.
And then she posted like a picture of her like drawing on the book.
No, like that she was about to, and I really didn't like that. It made me really uncomfortable.
Well, this is how you know if I read your book. If I don't have no lines in it, or if you read a book that I like, because I ain't underline them. That means nothing stuck to me.
I don't know what to read. I'll just read some voices then. Yeah, so this is like when Cha-Cha calls all of his siblings. I'll read a little bit of this. I'm going to start with Quincy. Quincy, third child, 59 years old. The problem is all those women up there with you. You know I love our sisters, Cha, but they're hysterical. I don't doubt they drive me crazy too. I'm not crazy, Quincy. Of course you're not crazy. You're my big brother and a Turner man. Listen to me, though. That hate might be real. It might just be in your imagination. I don't know. But your reaction to it is a choice. All this hysteria over a ghost, you can unchoose that, Cha. Turner men don't choose hysteria. Russell, fourth child, 57 years old. Tina said you upset Mama, and every time I call Mama, she says she ain't up to talk. Mama's confused, Russell, and that's not what I called to talk about. Well, what you called for, then? I called about that hate from the big room. I want to know what you remember. All I remember is what Daddy said. I know what Daddy said, Russell. Come on now. You remember that hate as being real, don't you? Sure, it's real. Or was real. No one ever saw it again, so that's got to mean something, too. I saw it on Sunday and every night since, plus that time when I had my accident. Aw, nobody thinks you really saw it when you had that crash. Tell you the truth, we all thought it was them painkillers. So you're telling me it could only happen once on Yarrow and then never again? Sure. Isn't that how the world works? We were all just at the wrong place at the wrong time back then, or at the right place at the right time, depending on how you look at it. You should really read the emails I send out, Cha. They're all about miracles and chance encounters. Things like that only happen once. Nettie, seventh child, 50 years old. From TurnerGirl7@coolmail.com to seedturner1@isecs.net. Subject, Re, I need to talk to you. Auto reply, vacation away message. Namaste. I'm on vacation in India. Will return May 29th. If this is work related, please contact my second in command, Lachelle Dozier. Kisses from the Taj Mahal, Antoinette Turner. Be the change you wish to see in the world, Gandhi.
And how hard was that creating 13 distinct voices? When really like only like I would say like 4 siblings are really like the central of the book and like
right. How does this go?
Yeah.
It was so I basically have you ever read Roberto Bolaño's The Savage Detectives?
No.
You should.
Okay.
So in The Savage Detectives, which is like a huge book and it's really in 3 parts. The first part is like a diary by this kid. Garcia Madero is his name. And it's like about him trying to get inside this clique, the Visceral Realists, this like poet group.
Yeah.
And the second part is like a series of interviews with all these people about their memories of the 2 leaders of the Visceral Realists. And the second part is crazy. So, because it's like all these people who are supposedly answering a question about when's the last time you saw one of these 2 like leaders.
Yeah.
But what they do instead is really just characterize themselves and give you these like quick portraits into who they are and what their own obsessions are.
Right.
And so when I read that, at that point I still had this problem where it's like I wanted to write about this huge family, but I didn't want to focus on every single character, every single sibling. So when I read that, I was like, oh, so what I can do, like towards the middle of the book, is just have you meet everyone once. Like they only get one conversation and you feel like you know them enough. So then at the very end, when everyone's together, you're like, oh, you're the one who went to India. You're the one who's like...
The 2 brothers always like freaking friends.
Right.
Yeah.
And so... even though I'm sure nobody would read that and think of Roberto Bolaño's book, to me, you get your craft sort of sparks wherever you get them from. And so when I read that, I was like, oh, I could do this really quickly.
Yeah. You did a phenomenal job doing that. Because I didn't get lost with the people. Like, what you said, I think that's a hallmark of a successful piece of writing when it does exactly what you intended it to do for the reader.
Thank you.
So, yeah. One dope thing, not trivia, but like I think notable thing is Issa read was reading the book on
Yeah.
Insecure.
Yes.
And
In order to not IG stalk, what's her name? Tasha? Yeah.
Yeah.
Lawrence's new situation, new boo.
Where you been? What episode you on? That came and went. With
I know. I was not spoiling. I was trying to give people the current moment in which the book was read.
Uh-huh.
But then the next episode, it's also on the nightstand when she's like trying to find batteries for her vibrator.
Yeah.
And that's a smaller moment. Like you have to be looking for it. But that actually makes me like more happy because it's just usually when people read, people don't really read on television. But when they do, even like Orange is the New Black or whatever, people are finishing these books in like 2 seconds. You never see the book again.
Yeah. So the fact that she was living with it,
Yeah,
it resonated with you.
It was still around on a nightstand where people put books that they're reading.
Yeah. And you know her?
Yes.
Vaguely, or like a friend of a friend know, or like
we're friendly. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. That's dope.
I mean, I don't like be talking to her all the time, but
I'll be saying y'all be blessing each other up. Y'all be like, "Oh, girl,
yes.
Congratulations on your stuff."
I am a fan.
Nah, I am a fan too. What else is going on in the world of Angela Flournoy?
Oh.
What can you share that's going on?
What can I share?
Because I know more than I want to let on. I don't want to blow up.
Why you even gotta do all that? Why you even gotta do all that? I'm still working on my second book, slowly but surely. Slowly. I had these other.
Can the streets know what it's about?
Yeah, I think it's on the Coleman website or whatever, where I had my fellowship. But you know.
Do it for lit, girl. Do it for the culture.
Of course, I'm not gonna send them to the internet. I would not send your people to the internet. So I'm writing a novel that is about it's about like Black female friendship and trying to track the like changes in this like friend group over 20 years. So like from 30 years oldish to like 50 years oldish, and
you love this middle age.
You're saying 30 is middle age?
I'm talking. Oh shit! No, I'm not saying 30 is middle age. I'm talking about
this interview is over. I got to go. No, I'm just really interested in where, like, what happens when you're no longer just like a kid. I feel like there were certain friendships in my 20s. Certain friendships I've been very fortunate have lasted through my 20s, but there were other friendships that how old are you again?
27.
Ooh, you're just like, you're not even there yet. 28 to 30 there's some stressful years. There's some tumultuous years.
Come on, my G, leave me out of this. It's
like your Saturn returns and you just want to throw everything. You just want to burn your life down. Anyway, so a lot of the relationships that I hadn't really thought about too hard, but I had sort of just maintained in my early 20s.
Yeah.
By my late 20s, I realized like we actually shouldn't be friends. And so I'm interested. And everyone who lasted through that, I just like can't imagine never not being in my life. But I'm interested to see like what actually happens. Because I also, I remember people my mom used to hang out with when I was like a teenager who she doesn't hang out with anymore. And then there's also, but that's like very few. Everyone else, it's like they've known each other for so long. I just can't really imagine what that looks like. And so.
How that happens.
But I mean, I'm not afraid of middle age as far as writing about it. That could be my thing if people want it to be.
That seems like your pocket.
I think
grown and sexy.
I mean, I think I'm also. People have always said that I'm like an old soul, so maybe that's it.
Yeah, I'm doing this thing ever since yesterday, giving people nicknames on their things. So your name is going to be Angela Grown and Sexy Flournoy.
Oh Lord, Grown and Sexy. Remember when people like would put that
on flyers?
Like, yes,
on
and it was
flyers.
Just like young and homely, not invited. Like who reading
that?
the flyer? No, I'm saying who reading the flyer is gonna think I'm not grown and sexy. I shouldn't go to this party.
But
Everyone's
then you show
think,
up at the door and then you get fucking rude awakening.
Right.
Like, ooh, no, you are.
But but it's not gonna keep anyone like away because everyone's gonna feel like my definition of grown and sexy is enough.
I think in the spirit of your writing, you should be honest with themselves. So what else? You got a new book dropping. What else?
It's not dropping. I have to write it first.
You got. Well, we talk about these things like they are going to happen.
All right,
so
speak it into existence.
Yes, that's the way you do it. Right. What else? What else you got going on?
I'm teaching at Princeton this year. Teaching the young people. I'm teaching intro fiction, 2 sections to undergraduates. So far, so wonderful.
What, in your understanding of how you teach it,
Oh.
how would you define fiction? When is something fiction?
That's a good question. I can't actually say it because that's like going to be a discussion topic in one of my classes in like 5 weeks.
Okay.
And I don't want them to just Google me down and find
the answer. Okay.
But you know, the more you read, especially the more you read sort of like things in translation or internationally, the more you realize it's really freeing in a way, because fiction is not necessarily what's like anthologized as fiction.
Yeah.
Like in this country, fiction is a lot more sort of like free-willing than that. And I guess maybe one thing that you can kind of put a finger on is that it gets at some sort of truth that like just a straightforward essay is like that has to abide by the rules of reality is not able to achieve.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've always thought about fiction as that lie you tell to get the truth out.
Yes.
You know how like you lie, like it's like those cop movies where like the person like does some dirtbag shit.
Interrogation tactics.
Yeah. But you do it so that you get the truth, which is like fine in the pursuit of justice, but it's different when like in real life like should be happening with like I don't like cop movies no more. That's another story.
That is another story. I mean, do they still make cop movies?
Yeah. I mean, you know what? You know, I think, and this is to the subject of like growing up, right? I think a lot of things I enjoyed as a kid, I think now I'm becoming older to see like the lives that get affected by the suggestions of those movies, how dangerous they are.
Right.
So like the cop who doesn't follow the rules.
Who
the
just
one
like runs up on a would-be witness and slaps them to get the truth.
And
like,
all this shit that you think like is good.
Excessive force.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
And then you start to, then it's like real life people who get like locked up for no reason because the person knows that they did
tearing up people's apartments, doing raids and stuff.
All that
it's just
stuff
like,
is
this
like
is disrespectful.
Yeah. So like I'm getting at that
pretending
age.
that they have warrants that they don't have. All of those things. All of it.
Yeah, all of it that you're taught to be like you accept as like normalized and like, yes, this is a good cop they're pursuing. And I'm seeing like, oh, like this is the
But
same.
that's one of the ways that they sort of normalize like really abnormal behavior. So that now some people don't understand what a cop is supposed to do or not, and which is why they like cheerlead cops who do all kinds of illegal things, because the movies told them it was fine, you know?
No, you're right. You're definitely right. Speaking of movies. And
the thing that would always get like the, commanding officer to be like, I want your gun and badge, was never like the clear, dirty things. It was always something else. like you blew up 800 boats in the marina. Okay, yeah, that would be it. But not like all these individual just violations.
Like like these things and that's what you have to do is blow up boats.
Or it was because you disrespected the commanding officer in some way. And then it's like, I want your gun and badge, but not because
and then they still go and they do whatever the fuck they want.
Exactly. Road cops and move. Like, that's terrifying. In real life, like,
But that's what you have so much. Well, you have, in theory, so much road cops.
In movies, there's so many road cops. Like, they gave in the gun and badge, but their partner still's at the door and it's like, we gonna get this guy. And it's like, wait a minute. He's just a civilian, wildin'.
Then at the end, he gets his gun and badge back.
Right.
Which is like the real
and
shit,
a commendation.
That's what they get in real life. You writing a show?
Huh?
You want to? Ooh, no? No, we not? Okay.
Oh, no, you didn't. See, it's because you drank more than me.
Okay. We not writing a show?
No.
What else are we not doing?
Huh?
What else are we not doing?
What I'm not doing.
No, I'm not even talking. I'm talking about.
What else?
Talking about the first thing.
Right.
That was related to this. Like, is that a project still on the table?
Oh, I don't know. So
that's what I was talking about the whole time.
Okay.
Right.
Sure you were. So a studio or production company optioned it for television a year ago. That option, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah.
But that option will actually come to an end soon. So I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, let me ask you something. Are you at liberty to speak about some of the people you would want to embody this book? Some of the actors who you would want to see play certain characters? I
really don't know.
Because I think this would give like middle-aged black actors like
all the work, right?
All the work.
I don't know, because
I would want to see Angela Bassett somewhere in the book.
I had just like had a vision of Angela Bassett. Angela Bassett would be a good Alice. She would be a good therapist.
She would just because
there are people. I don't know. I feel like a lot of the people that I would want are. Wendell Pierce would be a good Cha-Cha, I feel like.
Yeah, I remember you saying
he's
that.
curmudgeonly enough.
Yeah.
And lovable enough.
Who do you see playing Layla?
That would be hard.
I see Regina Hall.
Really? I could see I could see Sanaa Lathan actually. She seems like something about her demeanor is like a person with secrets. Anyway, not like she's shady, but you know what I mean?
But I think people were surprised that she dated French Montana.
I didn't even know that.
You know,
news to
that
me.
was like a thing for
a person with secrets, right?
It was like, okay, Sanaa Lathan is French Montana. That was not when I was going.
But yeah, myself. I would have to sort of like
think about it.
Think back to the characters.
Because I think what it does, what I asked that question for, because I think it gives an audience who doesn't read a way to think about a book. Because people who tend not to read don't have the same imagination as people who do often. So people, being able to see who these people are and like giving people a way in first kind of goes, oh, I would love to read about Sanaa Lathan. That's the thing that they...
Let me just throw their names in there.
Yeah, if that becomes the way that they read the book and they expand their imagination, then why not?
I could definitely see... what's his name? Molly dated him only for a day. Sterling K. Brown. Is that his name, Sterling?
Oh, Sterling K.
Brown?
Is that Sterling K. Brown? Oh, from This Is Us.
Yeah, I could see him as David, as Layla's
the one that
love interest.
Dicking down Layla. It's my show.
Oh, okay. I didn't know what the level was. I was trying to keep it PG.
Yeah, we up here.
Okay. I guess dicking down is PG in 2017 anyway. But
that was a scene.
But I would want somebody like a little sleazier for Troy. So that could be somebody.
Shamar Moore with the cornrows.
I was thinking that you're close. I was thinking Michael Ealy.
Yeah, he is more sleazy. That is definitely the light skinned dude that ruined your life.
Right. I could see Lonnie for sure being Terrence Howard. Lonnie is like the brother who lives in LA.
I like how we're talking about them like they're real people.
Right.
This is how you make it real. This is how you make the fiction fact. So where can people follow you?
They can follow me on the gram. Okay. I will respond to your messages or whatever on the weekends. I have a weekend only gram thing going right now.
Okay.
It's just my name. It's just Angela Flournoy.
What about the Twitters?
Twitter is the same thing. It's just my name.
Site, angelaflournoy.com?
Yeah.
Okay. Any events? Any readings?
Oh, man. Any events? Any readings? I'm going to Missouri. Wow. I'm going to... Somebody might be from Missouri.
I said wow. I didn't say why.
I thought you said wow, but like in that way.
Like wow. Like that's a...
I thought you said like wow. Like what? Like that. Anyway. So I am the one read. So the whole city of Columbus, Missouri is reading me.
Hey.
I've been lucky enough to be the one read a few times in Baltimore County and in Seattle. Now I'm going to Columbus, Missouri.
That's dope.
On Tuesday.
So let me ask you something. What is one of the more memorable things you've heard from a reader about your book? We're gonna end on that. No.
One of the most memorable things.
One of the more.
I'm always interested in crazy readings. Like I don't know how you got that out of a scene. So there was a scene. There's a scene early on in the book where Cha-Cha is installing a water filter and his sister Francie is under her kitchen sink.
Yeah.
And somebody thought that was a sexual innuendo scene because Francie was leaning over him.
Oh my God.
And they thought that this was some crazy incest in the kitchen.
Somebody
scene.
telling themselves.
And I was just how did we get here? How did we get here?
And what did they say to that?
They were I don't know. I just was expecting, because I didn't know, once I knew there was a ghost, I didn't know what the explanation was. So everywhere I was expecting was going to be the dirty secret that led to the ghost. And I was
so like a sexual abuse situation.
But that's fascinating because that means that they have been reading, like they're trained, narratives, they come from you from somewhere. So you've been reading things where you feel like the explanation for a supernatural occurrence must have some sort of twisted traumatic origin, which sometimes it does, but like it don't necessarily. I think that's like a Hollywood sort of rendering of it.
And that's sort of been the theme of the book. It's like people were trying to read trauma into the places of the book where it didn't exist.
Right. And that's what like Alice, like the therapist, does also.
Yeah. Like something traumatic happened to you. But we don't got no trauma on this show. We just got a whole lot of joy, a whole lot of intellectualism. And for you, a whole lot of being lit. That's yours. I promise you it's not a ring.
I know what it is. I know what it is. I've been waiting for this.
Yeah.
You should have some like music on when it's so big it needs 2 pins.
Yeah, that's how lit it is.
I don't think I've ever gotten an enamel pin that needed 2. And that came in its own little box. Do you need the box back?
Oh, that's yours.
You sure?
It has your name on it.
Oh shit! And you signed it. Thank you.
So people know.
You didn't put the year though.
Come on now.
I gotta do you like somebody's mom who's like, you gotta put the year on the back of your picture.
We gotta do this off camera because I don't know what the marker is.
Okay.
So before you get out of here, your literary swag. We did it 2 years ago.
It has changed.
And I know it's changed. So 3 writers, 3 clothing designers.
Oh. I don't even know who I said for either was. And I know my fiance would know. He'd be like, you said this, and this. That's the day we met too?
Really?
Yeah.
See, look, we making history out here, man. The first literary swag person I ever did was Jason Reynolds. Mm-hmm. He came on the show. The first time I did, y'all met, you and your boo. You want to talk about your boo while I find your literary swag video? Or you want to leave him off the table? He's off the table. Or you want like your Jay-Z, Beyonce? Don't ask me nothing about my boo type thing.
What is my literary swag?
I'm looking up the first video.
Okay, so I think some are the same. So writers.
Zora Neale Hurston being a part of it.
It was Toni Morrison, Edward P. Jones. Mm-hmm. Probably Zora Neale Hurston.
Right.
I'm gonna go with that again.
Okay.
The swag was, I don't remember what it was back then, but I think now I'm still gonna have to say shout out to Levi's. Like Levi's making the clothes that like I could fit, like the jeans I could fit.
Yeah.
You try to get these fancy designers, they don't believe in hips. I can't believe in them.
And long inseams simultaneously.
Right, like you can have one or the other. Yeah. So I'm still gonna say shout out to Levi's, which I think I said before. Shout out to Chucks. Just gotta keep it California. Okay. I was thinking about wearing Chucks today, but Chucks are like my rain shoes. Weirdly enough, high top Chuck 2s.
Yeah.
They can take a lot of water without any sort of like
seepage.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, don't like step in a puddle, but yes.
On purpose, yeah, like stretch it.
And let's think here. So I shop at Cause a lot. I don't know. That's just like
Cause stuff.
Is it Cause or Cos? COS?
I don't know what that is.
Oh, it's like what did one of my friends? I think they called it like H&M for like old people. It's like
this is the theme of your life.
It's like
Growing sexy that's the name. Growing
it's just
sexy.
like solid color, structural, but also sort of like amorphous pieces.
I get that. I get that.
But also, so I'm like really messing up the format of a literary swag.
Kick it.
This is not like the Instagram. Like I have to have like just bam, bam, bam. I can take more time.
This is more the free.
But also, I wore this skirt today because I went to my first Fashion Week show.
Laquan Smith, right?
Yes, and his collection has a lot of tartan and plaid, which I love tartan and plaid. And he has a skirt that's kind of like this that made me think. Which I mean, the collection's not out yet, so obviously I don't have none of it. It's not out till like the spring, and I ain't got it like that to be getting samples. Yeah. But
the show gonna get people there. Don't worry about
it. But yeah. So I'm also a fan of Laquan Smith. I gotta, get my funds right. But I met him randomly in Jamaica.
Yeah.
At the jerk chicken cart, and him and his partner Craig, and they're cool people, and they invited me to the show.
Hey, that was dope. Seeing writers at a fashion show. They need to start getting us as writers in these shows. Making us a part of Fashion Week, getting us front row at some things.
Right.
I think a good front row. Well, who would be a good literary front row for you? I would like to see you. I would like to see Nicole Dennis Ben, Jasmine Ward, Who else? Tracy O'Neal.
Mm.
Lisa Lucas.
Yeah. Lisa got some good jumpsuits.
Jason.
Oh,
Mitch.
yeah.
Who else? Esme Wayne. Who else is super swag? Zadie, of course. Zadie
of course.
has to be front row.
Chimamanda, of course.
Chimamanda.
I mean, they already
oh
are.
Shit! Like, well, first of all, Zadie went to the Met Gala.
Right.
Off rip, so she's already like.
She was in Mew Mew show last year. She was at a couple shows last year, I believe.
Yeah, I'm talking about a literary front row. I'm talking about that those iconic front rows.
That's nice that you said it. I would be there. I mean, I'd be trying. I'm just out here, you know, just out here trying. But
yeah.
I'm trying to think who else. I can't think about it right now. Who dresses really well? I know I'm missing somebody.
Nicole Seeley too.
Nicole Seeley. She also just like she's like fit. I ran into her at the gym and I just felt like my whole life was in shambles afterwards. I was like, this little 5-pound weight, screw this weight. But I can't pick up anything heavier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So this has been another episode.
Morgan Parker, low-key swaggy.
Oh, yeah, she is.
She's got a lot of vintage pieces.
Yeah.
She wore like, to reparations last week, she wore like a caftan, but it was like a jumpsuit. It was amazing. It was like a swaggy wearable couch, basically.
That's dope. That is dope. All right, now. Are we good?
Yes, I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. You ain't got to apologize. So this has been another episode of Lit. Follow us at Lit Platform. Follow me at Yadon on all the platforms. Follow Pink Pig Productions. Follow my man Cyril Jules. This is Liddy Fontaine.